Thanks for taking the time to learn information about the upcoming referendum taking place June 7th on protecting Flagler's future, a you decide vote on the .5 millage referendum. It is our hope with this presentation to share with you the financial struggles that we've been through and that we've been working through in order to make Flagler County students college and career ready. As you can see by this slide, there has been a steady decrease in local property taxes collected by the Flagler County School Board. Of course, this is in reflection as well to the downturn of the economy and the housing market, but it's very important to note that in Flagler County, the local property taxes collected have actually declined. Often we hear complaints about rising taxes and can't disagree with many of those sentiments. However, it's important to put this into perspective and to know that the reality and the factual statements surrounding school taxes are that they've actually declined. School millage rates from 2000 to 2013 have actually decreased. When I first came on the board in 2000, we levied nearly 10 millage points. Today, the local millage point, which includes 0.25 of the .5 referendum, is 7.93. So the question might be, how has that impacted your budget? Over the last 6 years, there has been a fairly consistent downward spiral in local revenues collected. As you can see with this slide, this includes our entire budget, all federal, state, and local taxes, revenues, that have been collected by the Flagler County School Board. You can see over the last 6 years a dramatic decrease in revenue of the tune of $55 million. Many people say, but you were building in 07, 08. Those are a lot of construction dollars. And the truth is, yes, we were building schools. However, just as though you may have built a home or obtained a mortgage back then for your home, you're still paying on the debt. We have had a significant loss of revenue in terms of capital dollars, and that is part of the difference you will see here. But just because we were building back then doesn't mean we don't have the debt. So we have less revenue coming in, but we're still paying on that debt, much like you are still paying your mortgage. So many people have asked, give us the bottom line. We don't want to know about all the other dollars. We want to know about those dollars that operate our schools' general expenditures, K-12. So this is a snapshot to be as transparent with you as we can. You can see by this slide over the last 6 years, we have cut over $12 million from our expenditures in the operation of K-12. In 2010, we were able to get a little bit of a cushion from the federal stimulus dollars, which did save jobs not only here in Flagler County but across the country. At the same time, we had the opportunity to put a .25 continuation millage on the ballot, which this community supported. That .25 sunsets June of this year, which is one of the reasons why we are here today. So there have been some unforeseen changes that have impacted our budget dramatically. We felt it was critical to share this information with you. One of those unforeseen changes was a change in our federal dollars. As many of you may have heard by now, the news that there was a federal cut sent down basically to all agencies that receive federal dollars. We estimate at this time that to lose about $1.5 million in federal funding. That number is fairly fluid at this point in time, and we're dealing with it through our reserves in the fund balance. However, it's important to note that while we are dealing with this federal loss of funding, it still doesn't do anything about the laws that we are mandated to follow. For our special needs students, it doesn't matter that we had a decrease in funding. We are still required by law to provide those services and programs. Many of those dollars protect and serve many of our most vulnerable students. The other unforeseen change is the change in student population. We noticed about a year ago an inconsistent dip in enrollment. This dip would come and go, but over the last year we have seen a steady decline in enrollment and now are looking at a loss of about 283 students. It's also important to note that the shift in population has changed greatly. We have enough students currently sitting in charter schools to fill an entire traditional school. So some people have said, hey, you have a loss of students. That means a reduction in services or staff. Easy to cut. The truth of the matter is, if you take those 200 plus students, almost 300, and you spread them over the course of the entire K-12 system in a school year, it becomes almost impossible to do so. If all of the students were educated in the same school, by the same teachers or grade levels, rode the same bus, ate in the same cafeteria, then of course you could reduce services. Unfortunately, throughout the school year, that's not the case, and it does not happen that way. There's no area of savings, just a cost reduction, just a cost with less revenue. However, for this coming school year, of course, that allows us to restructure and make some shifts, and we are cutting 15 teaching positions and 2 assistant principals positions. So in 2010, the community supported the continuation of the 0.25 mil. This was very important, and it helped provide 1.6 million at the time to our budget. That was a continuation, not new dollars. It's important to note that in 2007, 2008, I believe it was, the state legislature had backed out 0.5, the same 0.5 we're putting on the referendum, but they had backed out 0.5 millage from 2 mil that was part of your local property taxes for many, many years. They then allowed school boards through the supermajority vote to put 0.25 back on as a continuation, which we did along with many other Florida school districts. The following year, we were required by law to put that 0.25 out for a referendum vote, which we did, and that 0.25 sunsets June 30th of this coming year. So many have asked, how have you dealt with this loss of revenue? We've heard again and again, tighten your belt. My business has had to tighten their belt. You should too. My family has gone through a reduction in our family budget. We have to tighten our belt. It's important for the community to know that we have been tightening our belt. For the last 6 years, in the loss of $12 million, we have been doing a number of different cost-cutting measures. These are just a snapshot of a few of them. We cut 45 minutes of instructional time from the middle and the high school day, which in my opinion was probably one of the most detrimental. However, we have to recognize that it was also the biggest ticket item, saving $2.1 million. We cut clubs, after-school activities, travel, field trips, athletics, and many of those costs shifted to families around the community and businesses asking for sponsorships. We eliminated 198 positions, imposed the 2-mile rule for transportation at the middle and high schools. We are only funded to provide students with transportation outside of the 2 miles. We reduced employee work days and the number of stipends available. So why now? We've gotten that question a few times. Why didn't you, the first question, why didn't you put the 0.25 or the 0.5 on the referendum in November? The fact of the matter is this school board had a choice to make in the spring of last year. We had 2 items sunsetting, the half-penny sales tax and the 0.25. The half-penny sales tax is for 10 years, and it allowed us, the first go-round, to really infuse our classrooms with technology. We felt, putting these 2 issues side by side, that we could not ask the community to support both. And if we did, we were fearful we would lose both. We chose to go with the half-penny sales tax because it lasts 10 years versus the 4 years of the 0.25. It also is helped supported by those coming in and out of our community and just traveling through. And the bottom line was we had just begun to invest in technology in the classroom. And whether some like it or not, technology is no longer a luxury in a school. It is a necessity in order to make our students ready for the 21st century. One of the other reasons for why a special referendum in June, July 1st is the start of our budget year. We must have a balanced budget. We don't have a choice. We're not Washington or Congress. And without knowing the dollar amount that we have to work with, it becomes very challenging and difficult to basically plan programs, budget, hire, fire staff effectively. So we needed this information prior to July 1st, because again, July 1st is when the start of our budget year. We had a conversation about safety recommendations that were made to us by a team of individuals after the tragedy at Sandy Hook. And in looking at their recommendations and the amount of money it would take to implement those recommendations, the information regarding the federal loss in funding, the new information about declining enrollment, taking all of these pieces into account and realizing that we were going to have to cut some of our most treasured programs, the conversation turned to, if we just continue to cut, what is going to be left in regards to a quality education in Flagler County? We felt that the public had a right to know exactly where we were, what we were dealing with, and that they had a right to have a voice in this decision. As a parent, those of us sitting around the table felt that we wanted to know, and that other parents would want to know this information, and that if it meant an additional $2, $4 a month, and it meant we could save some of our programs, and we could save jobs, and we could return the 45 minutes to the school day, and we could address additional security measures, that parents and community members had the right to know that information and make an informed decision. There's been a lot of misinformation out there on the motive of this referendum, and it very simply comes down to, we can continue to respond by simply cutting, cutting, cutting. And we have just in our accreditation report been commended on how we have worked so hard to protect the classroom. But after 6 years and $12 million, you can only do that for so long before you impact exactly that, and that is the classroom and the quality of instruction. This was about informing the public, informing the voters, and allowing them to make the decision. So I know many of you have been hearing about the new budget from the governor and the state legislature, and I'm sure some of you have asked yourselves, hey, hold on, wait a minute. I just heard you got all this new money from the governor, which is true, and we're very grateful that the state legislature and the governor have seen the importance of investing in education. However, many of those dollars come with strings, and it's important for you to understand the breakdown of that new budget. So let's take a minute and take a look at the reality of this new budget, and you can quickly see where our shortfall is. There is a mandated teacher salary increase in this new budget. You've been hearing on the news about the governor wanting to give teachers $2,500, $3,500 to their base pay. That allocation takes up about $2.1 million. This is of great concern for districts around the state because the question of sustainability comes into play. This is not a bonus. This goes on their base pay. So the question many of us have is, how do we sustain this next year and the year after and the year after that? Because as you know, that will compound. But that's a discussion for another day. There's also a mandated required retirement contribution that eats up about $1.1 million. We have a new mandate where school districts now have to pay dual enrollment costs for those students enrolled. We have worked very hard over the years to increase the number of students we have enrolled in dual enrollment programs. What a tremendous benefit to them to graduate from high school with an AA degree or 2 years of college tuition paid for. What a better opportunity for families. That cost has now been shifted from the state colleges to local school districts around the state. This is a low estimated number because we've worked hard to build those numbers up. At this point in time, we're looking at $500,000 in tuition that will have to be paid out. We have an overestimate of enrollment by 283 students, which equates to about $1.8 million loss. We have a contracted salary step in there for $1.1 million. And then there's smaller non-negotiable items like McKay scholarships and a few others. And those items, even though they're small, they add up to about $400,000. So you can see very quickly that all of those required items or mandated items add up to about $7 million. Again, the new money we got allocated to us in this year's budget was $5.2 million. So you can see we are starting with a shortfall of $1.8 million right out of the gate. That's not including the $1.5 million federal cut, and we're not even sure exactly what that cut will end up being, which is why we are most likely going to deal with that in our reserve fund. So after taking all the information that we had present to us in that workshop setting, we decided that it was only fair to bring the 0.5 mil referendum to voters and ask them to decide if the following needs will be addressed. So if the referendum is supported, it will save our current programs and jobs. That doesn't mean we may do some restructuring in regards to efficiencies, and some things will be redesigned, but basically it will save our current programs that we have in place and jobs. It will help us restore the 45 minutes of instructional time for students in the middle and the high schools. We specifically stated in there that we wanted the protection of the arts in education because we know many districts around the state that is the first to go. It will restore and provide many of the prevention and mental health services that we had at one point in time prior to such severe cuts. And it will allow us to address some of the security features on our campuses that were mentioned as part of that assessment. School resource officers got a lot of attention as part of that recommendation. It is a fraction of what was recommended to us. We were discussing things like entryways, outdoor locking mechanisms, communication systems, automatic locking devices, and a number of different things. A vote no may result in the following. And these are all of the items that the school board has actually workshopped, and these are the agreed upon cuts if the referendum fails. The closing or restructuring of Everest Alternative School, Linear Park, Princess Place, a reduction in funding of the Strings program and the Future Problem Solvers. It's very important to note that these, for those of you who may not be part of the school system and may not know or realize and think that these are things that we should cut, these are things that have allowed Flagler County to stand out, not just statewide, but nationally and internationally. We are talking about the elimination of 6 paraprofessional positions, elimination of 15 teaching positions, 2 assistant principal positions, 2 positions at the Government Services Building, a suspension of purchasing of all library books for a year, and so on. Cuts to adult education, custodial reorganization, but it will also basically not allow us to address the 45 minutes in the school day or some of the security measures. Important note, we did not make the closing of a school contingent on the referendum, because the bottom line is we may have to do that regardless of the outcome of the referendum. We felt it would not be truthful if we said to the community, vote yes, and it would save a school from closing, because that simply may not be the truth. So the question is for the community, how much school safety and quality instruction worth to you, the community? We've gotten these numbers from the tax appraiser's office, and the cost to taxpayers would equate to an additional cost of about $24 a year based on a home valued at $123,000 with an exemption. If you broke that down, about $1.99 a month, depending on how you wanted to look at it. This millage would be levied for 4 years, and we know that there are a number of variables that would impact this 4-year time span in regards to local property taxes collected. Some people have said, what if my home is almost $500,000? Well, then you would take that and you would look at it and say, okay, well, $1.99 is $123,000. If I'm 4 times that, we're talking about maybe $8 a month. So the question we felt fair was, we share with you the facts. We let you know exactly what's happening as a district. There is no one on our school board that is saying we are simply pro-tax looking for another tax. You are currently paying 0.25 of this 0.5 millage. The difference in your tax bill would be an additional 0.25, which again, we're looking at for the average home valued in Palm Coast, about $2 a month. Obviously, you would amend that to the value of your home. But we felt like if we laid the facts out and you knew exactly where we were, and you were able to make an informed decision, that you may consider those items worth that investment. So the question is, are those things important to you? And are they worth the additional $2 a month, maybe $8 a month, maybe even $10 a month to you to support? We felt it was our responsibility as school board members to make sure that you had this information so that you can make an informed choice. We would ask that you help us educate voters, but more importantly, we would ask that you get out the vote, you vote yes on June 7th, and you help spread this information to your family, your friends, and your neighbors. Our kids are depending on it, our school district is depending on it, and we really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about facts surrounding protecting Flagler's future, a You Decide 0.5 mil referendum. Thank you.